Need help. Okay. And so your wife is injured? Yes. Okay. And it was in a car accident? Yes.
Does this look normal to you? No.
The investigators were telling me they needed to investigate this a little more thoroughly than just a traffic accident.
Are you guys insinuating that I did this to my wife?
He was very fidgety, very nervous. His leg was shaking quite a bit.
The injuries around her neck are consistent with being choked.
Okay, and I never choked her.
They're gonna start looking into this and figure out, well, this is silly, like he didn't do this.
3 months after a West Salem woman died from what was believed to be a freak accident, her own husband is now charged with killing her.
Mr. Kendhammer, isn't it true that you punched her, broke her nose?
No.
There's blood on both your knuckles.
It's not from punching my wife.
It absolutely made no sense to me that this man, after 25 years of a marriage that everybody saw as being happy, one day just snapped, killed his wife, and staged an accident.
Your wife is in a bar. You said she's unresponsive?
This is what he's going to tell you.
How to get out of that situation.
And I grabbed the gun.
Trying to find the first place to put a body.
No, sir.
The only thing they could do was kill him.
You want to say anything?
We, the jury, and to find the defendant.
They met in high school.
Husbands should love their wives as much as they love themselves.
Todd and Barbara had a really special relationship.
For as much as Todd and Barbara have consented together in holy wedlock, I pronounce them husband and wife.
And then they just were together ever since.
They were a team in everything they did.
Todd was a pretty typical average person, had a middle class, lived in this area all his life. His wife worked as what we call lunch lady at the local middle school. So a pretty normal person by most accounts.
Barbara and Todd Kendhammer celebrated their 25th wedding anniversary with family and friends.
We threw a surprise party for them, which we actually pulled it off and surprised them. It was really emotional, and it was just really cool to see everybody there celebrating them and their lifetime together.
1 month later, on County Road M, tragedy struck.
Need help. Okay.
And so your wife is injured?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And it was in a car accident?
Yes, a pipe or something came through a windshield, a pipe did.
Sir, what's your first name?
Todd.
Todd, okay. They're gonna help you help her until somebody gets there, okay?
Hurry up.
He sounds upset, he sounds excited. It sounded like a weird accident and an unfortunate accident.
Tell me exactly what happened. It got her and she's hit in the head and in the throat, I think, in the throat or something. She's got blood coming out of her nose and mouth and it's really big and blue.
How old is she?
46.
Is she awake?
No, I can't get her to right. She talked at first a little bit.
Okay, is she breathing?
No, I don't think so. No.
He's terribly traumatized. He's like, what do I do?
Pump the chest hard and fast. At least
he's got blood coming out of his mouth.
They're coming, Todd. Keep on going. The best thing we can do for her right now is to continue with that CPR.
You can hear him trying to do CPR. He's out of breath. Then he's worried that he may have hurt her because he didn't do it right, made it worse.
Hurry up! Hurry up! Hurry up! Hurry up! You'll be okay, Barb. You'll be okay, Barb. You'll be okay.
He's standing there, covered in the blood from trying to do CPR on her. He was interviewed 4 times in the first hour while his wife is receiving CPR, while she's being loaded into the ambulance.
Barbara, still alive, was rushed to the hospital.
Sir, come on over with me, okay? What happened? Do you know what happened?
There's a pipe.
There's a pipe over here.
Okay.
Hit it. It's gonna be all right.
I don't know. There's a pipe in the ground.
No, it come out of that tree off a truck.
Of a truck?
A truck or a trailer or something. I think it was a truck with a flatbed on it.
And the truck kept going?
It didn't. I don't know if he fell.
Okay. Were you in the car with her?
I was driving. I tried to catch it.
Catch the pipe?
I tried to see it. I hit it. I went to hit it, but the windshield got me.
It came across the windshield?
It came through the windshield.
Okay, just stay right here.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
The pipe is there. He said the truck was going this way. It was an older flatbed. It came off the flatbed truck and went right through the windshield. He said he tried to deflect it, but he couldn't, and it hit her in the head, and she just started flailing all over.
The officers could not understand how his car ended up as it did in the culvert.
Is this super normal to you? Well, he said he backed up because he was such a panic. Is this normal? No.
All he cared about was Barbara, and she was in trouble, and there was nothing he could do. He was absolutely helpless. And he was so upset and so frantic that every single one of those police officers who talked to him at some point had to say, "Breathe, Todd, breathe."
Todd, listen to me. Deep breaths. You're starting to hyperventilate, okay? Through the nose.
He was truly distraught, frantic, and it was because his beloved Barbara was suffering.
County guy comes here, he'll take over, and then I'm going to go look for that pipe, okay?
It's right. I pulled it out of the windshield.
You pulled it out of the windshield?
It's sitting right beside the car.
Okay.
The pipe was about 5 feet long, galvanized steel.
You want him to take pictures of Todd, his hands, his front, all the blood, his knuckles, and everything before he takes off?
Yes.
Okay.
At that point, we were still, trying to figure out what we had, so that's where we were just trying to make sure we documented that.
Barbara was in critical condition at the hospital on life support as the family gathered.
They were starting to tell us that, there was not going to be much else they could do, that she was going to be brain dead.
Police immediately began a search for the truck that might have dropped the pipe.
We had investigators who were out pulling video from different businesses, different residences, to try to locate this truck that he had explained to us was there and passing.
One video from a horse farm showed the car that Todd and Barbara were in that morning, about a mile before the accident happened.
Within a minute or two, you should see a truck going southbound if there were a truck, and there isn't any.
Other videos were closely scrutinized.
We're never able to see any kind of truck that he would have described to us go by, and we're never able to find anyone that would have been driving a vehicle matching that description and with a payload that would have matched what Todd described.
Within a couple days, the investigators were telling me there were some issues they were finding, and then once the autopsy was done, there were some bigger issues that they decided they needed to investigate this a little more thoroughly than just a traffic accident.
The lab technicians reported a number of inconsistencies based on their examination of the car.
There's no blood on the headrest, and her most serious injuries were from the back of her head.
The windshield had been struck twice by the pipe.
So we tried reenacting it.
State police investigators conducted some 12 different reenactments with a similar pipe.
Some of them do show it bouncing, but I think only one of them showed that. And whether it bounced or not, it still doesn't hit the windshield twice. You still don't have two impacts. He said that he had gotten some scratches on his neck from working with glass at work, and it turned out he doesn't work with glass at work. He had some injuries to his knuckles that he said came from hitting the windshield, which seemed unlikely.
Why don't you go ahead and have a seat there?
On the day before Barbara's funeral, Todd Kendhammer was brought in for questioning.
We were still trying to figure out, maybe there's something we're missing that he can explain that, okay, that was all wrong, but here's what really happened.
I just want to say sorry for your loss and terrible tragedy. Can't imagine what you're going through.
Investigators told Kendhammer they needed his help with some new video leads.
Did you find anybody?
So they tricked him to coming back, and they said, hey, come in, we found some videos of a truck or something, when really what they wanted to do was to bring him in and put the screws to him.
When you do an interview, you let the person talk and tell you their story. You're always looking for a confession, but provable lies are a great thing to have in statements.
Sheriff's Office Detective Fritz Leinfelder and Sergeant Mark Yelly conducted the questioning of Todd Kendhammer.
I'm just telling you that any time that somebody dies, whether it be a traffic accident, something, there's obviously a lot of questions, and if we just take the first person, one person's word for it when they're under stress, that's why we're here today, is just to kind of clear things up and try to get answers to some of those other questions. Obviously, as time goes by, more questions come up, and we wouldn't be doing our jobs if we don't look into it thoroughly. So.
And that's why, Ken, when you called, I want to get this for Barb.
You're going into the lion's den. They were not looking for his side of anything. They wanted to convict him. They wanted to get a confession out of him. And they picked a time, the day before his wife's funeral, when he was going to be still traumatized, but maybe even more emotional.
They started by asking Kendhammer where he was going that morning.
I was going over to talk to a guy I work with.
What's his name?
Justin Heimer.
Justin Heim, a person that he worked with that he claimed had a windshield that was broken that he was going to go fix. I did an interview of Justin Heim, and that turned out to be completely untrue.
I talked to Justin.
Okay.
He had never had you do any work for him.
Are you guys insinuating that I did this to my wife?
I'm not insinuating anything at this point. I'm saying that Justin is saying that there wasn't a windshield order. He didn't talk to you. He hadn't seen you in about a month.
And that's what I told you. It's been at least a month. Maybe I'm just guessing a month, but I'm not changing my story. I'm 100%.
He was very fidgety, very nervous. You know, his leg was shaking quite a bit. You know, he was showing different signs in the nonverbal world of shutting down and not wanting to talk. You know, his hands over his face, his head face down.
You loved her a lot.
I did. You can ask my kids. My kids will tell you I would do anything for her. Anything.
There's injuries to Barbara that aren't consistent.
Okay.
Okay. There's a lot of injuries to her that aren't consistent with a pipe going through the windshield.
Okay.
And we need an explanation for those.
Okay.
And we don't have an explanation for some of those injuries because they didn't happen by a pipe coming through the windshield, and I think you understand that. And I think you know that.
Okay.
There's injuries to the back of her head. There's injuries to her neck. There's injuries to her nose. There's injuries to her forehead. There's injuries to her jaw. There's all these different injuries that didn't occur. The pipe didn't go bing, 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 bing,
I
bing,
understand
bing at
that.
all. The injuries around her neck are consistent with being choked.
Okay, and I never choked her.
Okay.
I never. I mean, I've got.
Todd, you gotta stop for a second. Take a breath and relax, okay?
I can't.
He's shaken. He looks exhausted. He looks grief-stricken. He looks numb.
But if I was going to try to do something to my wife, I sure in the hell wouldn't have done it like this. To put somebody through misery and pain like that. There's no way in hell I would have ever. I've got 50 guns sitting in my cabinet. I've got so many things, and we had no fight. There was absolutely zero fight.
While we were interviewing him in that room, there were other investigators at the house that were doing a search warrant that we had prepared and ready to go to see if there was any evidence of something that would have happened at the residence.
I just kind of glanced over at the sheet that he left there, that was the warrant, and it said something about first intentional homicide. And I was like, what is this? I've never seen my dad hurt a fly, so, I mean, he's never heard anything that I've seen. I guess we thought, you know, they're gonna start looking into this and figure out, well, this is silly, like, he didn't do this.
About 3 hours into the questioning, Todd Kendhammer changed his story about where he was headed that morning. Not to see Justin, but a friend of Justin's.
I'm confused. Justin had a conversation with you in May, said, hey, I got a buddy that needs a windshield repaired, and you said, I've got one.
That turned out to be false also.
You're not telling us the whole truth.
Yes, I am.
You're not.
I'm not.
I wish you were. I know it's tough, and I'm not trying to get you riled up, but you're not telling us the truth. You're not.
Something else happened.
Guys, I can't do anymore. I can't tell you anymore. I can't do anymore.
I think he had a pretty good idea where we were kind of zeroing in on, that we believed that he was the one that was responsible for Barbara's death.
Well, I'm going to stand to my word until, I'm going to...
Until when?
Until
you can't stand anymore, so you're back in the corner?
No.
Now's the time to get it out.
I'll be in the corner then.
It's tough.
I'll stand in the corner then. I'll get out of the corner.
Truth releases you.
I know it does. I know it does. I know it does. And I have nothing I'm lying about. Nothing.
You have a lot of reasons for sticking to your story, I understand that.
But tell me what reason I would have to do this to my wife. That's what I don't understand.
We did not have a strong idea of what a motive might be, other than we don't know what happens in domestic relationships.
We're going to go through everything.
Yep.
Phones, computers, everything we can. Everything. Her phone, photographs, talk to her friends, talk to your friends.
Yep.
They looked at bank records. They talked to coworkers to find out if there was any hint of what might be going on in their lives at the time, but nothing jumped out as a motive for a crime.
They've combed through our lives with a fine-tooth comb and can't find anything. I'm the one who's lived with my dad and my parents my whole life, and I know them, and anybody else you ask that knows them knows that he didn't do it.
We're going to do everything.
I understand that, and I'm not going to hide one thing from you guys. If there's anything that...
I think, in my opinion, that you're hiding one thing, and that's how all these injuries happened.
No.
This story doesn't add up. Obviously you didn't plan, because this is
living
in our life right now.
I didn't.
Something happened that you're not telling us.
Okay.
You know
I appreciate your time.
You know the injuries are what they are. They didn't occur as you said them. You're the only one that was there. You're the only one that knows.
I am Barb.
We can't ask Barb now, can we?
We can't.
We can't ask Barb. We can ask you. And you're the only one that's going to be able to tell us. In her memory, you're the only one that's going to be able to tell us.
Yeah.
Someday you're going to. I think you're going to. It's going to fester and rot. You're going to tell us what happened. Accidents happen, and it wasn't the accident on the road. There was an accident that happened prior to that between you and Barb. Things got out of hand, and things shouldn't have happened that happened, but they happened, and that's what it is.
I would never, I don't care what the explanation was, hurt my wife or anybody for that reason, especially in that manner.
Something happened. Something triggered it. You said you don't snap, but something happened.
So you're going to let me know where the next step goes, or what?
If you want to know, all you got to do is call.
We had no further questions. He was allowed to leave the sheriff's office. Something caused Todd to snap. I'm not exactly sure what it was. And a fight ensued. And looking at the nature of all the injuries that we have, it looked like that Todd beat his wife to death.
But with no confession, it would be up to the crime lab and the forensics team to turn the theory of what happened on County Road M into enough evidence for an arrest warrant.
One of the theories that we had is that Todd retrieved the pipe from the trunk and then threw the pipe through the windshield and staged the incident.
And a single blade of grass became an important clue.
The car was backed into the swamp where there's some tall swamp grass, and it looked like somebody had opened up the trunk and then closed it and caught some of that grass in the trunk. And that's the only way the grass would get there. There's no explanation for that other than somebody going in the trunk.
And the photos taken of Kendhammer the day of the accident also became important.
He had injuries to both hands on his knuckles.
Plus scratches around his neck.
There was obviously a fight inside the car. No blood in the headrest kind of tells us that that's not maybe where those injuries happened.
And then a truck driver who had passed the accident scene came forward as an eyewitness.
And he saw a car in a ditch and thought maybe it was a teenager that made a wide turn and got stuck, so he slowed down, looked to see if any people were there. Most importantly, didn't see any people and also didn't see any damage to the windshield. Obviously, the car didn't go into that ditch because a pipe came through the windshield. That must have been done afterwards. In other words, it must have been staged.
At the Kendhammer home, the family was in disbelief about what was happening.
He's a suspect now and he's gonna get arrested. And we're like, well, they can't arrest him. Like, he hasn't done anything. And we just kind of talked with him and he told us what was gonna happen, and it did.
3 months after a West Salem woman died from what was believed to be a freak accident, her own husband is now charged with killing her.
News 8's Madeline O'Neill now joins us in the newsroom with the latest.
Martha and Mike, a homicide charge against 46-year-old Todd Kendhammer has been filed today after an investigation shows he may be lying about how his wife died.
It felt like it kind of came out of nowhere. You know, having an arrest for a homicide that you didn't know was a homicide, that you thought was a crash, was out of the ordinary.
Kendhammer pleaded not guilty, and his family stood strong behind him, raising the money for a vigorous defense.
It absolutely made no sense to me that this man, after 25 years of a marriage that everybody saw as being happy, one day just snapped and killed his wife and staged an accident, and that was that.
The trial for a West Salem man accused of killing his wife is underway.
Today, signs outside and inside.
You don't see a lot of murder trials in La Crosse, I'll tell you that.
Seats in the courtroom were set aside for Todd's family and across the aisle for Barbara's family.
Family members were overwhelmingly in support of Todd, and that even included Barbara's mother. She'd sit on the side for Todd rather than for Barbara.
He was a basket case pretty much the whole time. He actually developed Graves' disease, which is hyperthyroidism, which causes tremors, which people attributed to his guilt, but he had an untreated medical condition going on.
We'll start with the state, Mr. Grinke. I have a difficult job. I need to convince you beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant in this case killed his wife of 25 years, Barbara Kendhammer.
I know that they were going to talk about the lack of motive. I think it's human nature to ask why. Why would someone do this? Why would it happen?
I won't pretend to you that I know everything that happened that day because I wasn't there. Barb, unfortunately, has passed away. And the only person that can tell us what happened is telling a story that is not true. You won't hear any evidence that Todd and Barbara were fighting. Many people say that they seem to be a good couple, a happy couple, a normal couple. There won't be any testimony or witness to some sort of argument or history of violent behavior. But in the end, you will be convinced that there was no truck. There was no truck that lost a pipe. The pipe did not fly and crash the windshield. And once you understand that the only reality left is an unfortunate one that nobody wants to face and nobody wants to admit, but we have to find the truth for Barb. And at the end of the case, I'll ask you to enter a conviction of guilty for first-degree intentional homicide for Todd Kendhammer.
All right, Mr. Hurley, are you ready to give the defense opening?
Yes, sir.
All right, proceed.
Good morning. In his opening statement, Mr. Grinke told you that you're not going to hear evidence of a motive. It's not simply that you're not going to hear such evidence. What you will hear is evidence of one of those quiet but amazing love stories. It had the kind of marriage where they were constantly in touch with one another.
And defense lawyer Steve Hurley told the jury that they would hear from Todd Kendhammer himself.
You'll hear that on the Thursday following her death, it finally hit him. And he's going to tell you that he spent the day crying and crying and crying. And while he was doing that, he got a phone call from the police. And they lied to him. They said they wanted him to come down and talk to them because they had some video of possible flatbeds that they wanted him to look at. And he said, oh, okay. And you're going to see that tape. You're going to see someone who is in an emotional state and incredibly nervous. When you've heard everything, it isn't simply that the state will not have proved beyond a reasonable doubt that he killed his spouse. You will know that Todd Kendhammer could never have even had the thought pass through his head. And I will ask you to find him not guilty. Thank you.
My name is Dr. Kathleen McCubbin.
The state's most important witness was the medical examiner who conducted the autopsy on Barbara Kendhammer.
The cause of Barbara Kendhammer's death was blunt impact injuries of her head and neck.
When you looked at these injuries, do you think they came from a pipe?
I do not believe that these injuries are consistent with the end of a pipe striking the back of the head, no.
All right, Mr. Hurley, you may proceed with your cross-examination.
Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning.
Were you given any information about how Mr. Kendhammer had extracted his wife from the vehicle?
No specifics, no. I was told that he removed her from the vehicle, but not specifically how.
Were you told that he finally had to yank her out of the vehicle?
No, I was not.
Were you told that after he extracted her from the vehicle, they fell backwards with her on top of him?
I don't think that specifically was told to me, no.
And at each of these movements, there is the opportunity, is there not, for the body to incur a scrape or a contusion?
That is a possibility, yes.
Mr. Grinke, are you ready to call your next witness?
State calls Justin Heim.
Justin Heim was the person who Kendhammer had originally told police he was going to see about a replacement windshield on the morning of the accident.
Are you aware of any reason why Todd Kendhammer would have been coming to your house on the morning of September 16th of 2016?
No.
Kendhammer had then said he was actually going to see a friend of Heim, Ben Paff.
After I spoke with Ben, I told Todd that Ben was not interested in having the windshield replaced, and that was pretty much left at that.
And then the one witness who had driven by the car in the ditch that morning before police arrived.
Sir, could you state your name?
Randall Erler?
As you drove by, did you hear anything?
No, I did not.
Did you see any damage to the windshield?
No, I did not. As I looked through it, to look through that at that angle, seeing the door was open, I saw no damage whatsoever.
It all left a lot riding on Todd Kendhammer's testimony, but his family was confident.
We had our hopes up because we were like, this should be pretty cut and dry. Like, it's blatantly obvious that he didn't do this.
We have something here that we don't have in most trials, which is a defendant on the stand.
His testimony in this case is the turning point.
Todd Allen Kendhammer.
His lawyer knew the best defense was that Todd had no motive to kill his wife.
Is that you and Barb?
Yeah, yes. It was a picture book saying, just one of these things where you know immediately that's the girl you want.
The jury had already seen the 3.5-hour police interrogation of Kendhammer that the prosecution said showed him to be a liar.
And you recall on at least one of those tapes telling people that you were looking for Justin Heim's place.
Yes.
Do you know where Justin Heim lives?
No, I do not.
Why'd you say Justin Heim?
When I watched those tapes and I watched that video, that's not me. It's me in the picture, but it's not me talking. It's not right state of mind talking in that. I wasn't thinking of where I was going or what I was doing. I was thinking of Barb.
And now, he testified, he recalled he was actually going to see somebody else who Justin Heim knew.
Do you remember the name of the person he mentioned?
It was Jerry Logging.
A third person. We could not believe that when there was a third person. That's just one of those jaw-dropping moments.
Do you recall when you were first asked what happened, you said a pipe came through the windshield?
Yes.
And was that true? Did a pipe come through the windshield?
Yes, it is.
Did you take her head and bash it against the wheel rim?
No.
Did you take a pipe and beat her with it in any way?
No.
Did you love Barb?
Yes.
Did you love her on September 16 of last year?
Yes, I still do.
Did you ever do anything to physically hurt Barb?
No, I never have ever done anything to my wife.
Have you ever lost your temper with her?
No. Never ever lost my temper with Barb.
I have no further questions.
He didn't look like a killer. He seemed kind of sad, didn't he? Could the jury see him as somebody who's, frankly, just a husband who loved his wife, who got lost and badly confused in some sort of tragedy? It's not the worst reasonable doubt argument I've ever heard.
Mr. Grinke, you may begin your cross-examination.
I was trying to be aggressive enough to show him that I believed he was lying so the jury would see that I thought he was lying to them.
When the police noted scratches on your neck, you first said that that was from working with glass, correct?
I said that, yes.
Well, were these scratches from glass?
No, not from glass doing at home.
That was a lie.
It wasn't a lie.
It was not true.
It was not true.
The scratches were from her trying to get you off of her, weren't they?
Nope.
The two of you were fighting and she was scratching your neck?
Nope.
While we're on that topic, your memory seems to fade at certain parts, Mr. Kendhammer, and be solid in other parts. Is it possible you're making this entire story up?
No.
Mr. Kendhammer, isn't it true that you punched her, broke her nose?
No.
Caused bruises on her face?
No.
There's blood on both your knuckles, right?
It's not from punching my wife.
There's scratches on your neck, right?
Yes, there was.
She had scratches on her neck too, right?
Yes, she did.
You were strangling her at some point, weren't you?
No.
You described a flatbed truck as a 2000 truck era, dark color, not white, pocket size, 8 inches to 2 feet. That sounds pretty detailed, doesn't it?
It does sound detailed.
You thought more detail would make your lie more believable.
I was trying to help.
Trying to help by sending the police on a wild goose chase?
No, not sending them on a wild goose chase.
They challenged your story about where you were driving that day. Do you remember that?
Yes.
You said you wouldn't change your story. It's 100% true.
Yes.
You said you wouldn't snap.
Correct.
But now we know they were right to question that story about Justin Heim because it wasn't true.
Correct.
That's all I have.
The prosecution closed out its case with a surprise rebuttal witness.
Could you state your name?
Jared, logging.
The person Kendhammer had claimed in his testimony that he was going to see that morning.
Immediately after that statement, we were on the phone making contact. He was extremely upset because he knew it was a lie.
Had you talked to Mr. Kendhammer about fixing a windshield on that truck?
No.
I think it's just almost like a collective gasp, or you see that third witness. That's the nail in the coffin.
At this point, we'll hear closing argument from counsel. The state having the burden of proof goes first, but they also get the last word in a rebuttal comment. So, Mr. Grinke?
Thank you, Your Honor. As I told you last Tuesday in opening arguments, we're here to seek the truth of what happened to Barbara Kendhammer. And the truth does not support the defendant in any way in this case. And even though I don't think we have every answer, because one person involved in this has passed away, and the other person has done nothing but throw up smoke screens, we have enough answers to find this defendant guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. We have to accept the fact that we are here to do a simple job, but a very important job, and that's to find the truth. The truth of what happened on September 16th. Not to judge the marriage of Todd and Barbara Kendhammer, not to say whether or not he's always been a violent man or always been a bad man. Sometimes people can have two sides of them, and sometimes good people do bad things, sometimes bad people do nice things. If you believe that the defendant lied about what happened and did things to cover this up, he's guilty. It's really that simple. We've given you more than enough evidence to find that Barbara Kendhammer was beaten to death. If you were to find him not guilty, You would have to believe he was a victim of not only an accident that defies physics and all the physical evidence, but a series of incompetent law enforcement officers, an incompetent medical examiner, and an incompetent crime lab. You should give Barbara what her husband will not: the truth about her death. He killed her, and he should be held accountable.
At this time, Mr. Hurley, are you ready to give your closing argument?
Yes, sir.
All right, proceed.
Good morning. Nobody who knew Barb and Todd ever saw them argue. Not in 25 years of marriage or during their entire courtship. Nobody ever heard him raise his voice to her or she to him. The state tells you no marriage is perfect. And the odds of that being true are great. But just because there might be a day when no marriage was perfect doesn't mean you're going to kill your spouse. Use common sense, especially in answering the question, why would this man ever want to kill the woman who has been his entire adult life? The woman that he fell in love with when he was 16 years old. I ask you to do your duty, and in doing that duty, to find Todd Kendhammer not guilty. Thank you for your attention throughout this trial.
All right, Mr. Grinke, you may give your rebuttal argument.
Thank you, Your Honor. I've proven to you that Mr. Kendhammer, for some reason that I can't tell you because he's the only one who knows, killed his wife and then tried to cover it up and then came into court and lied to you to try to get away with it. Don't let him get away with it.
Been advised that there is a verdict at this point. I expect absolutely no comments in any way, shape, or form from any member of this courtroom at this time. Mr. Kendhammer, if you'd please rise for the reading of the verdict. State of Wisconsin versus Todd A. Kendhammer. We, the jury, find the defendant, Todd A. Kendhammer, guilty of first-degree intentional homicide as charged in the information.
When they said that, I was just like, one of my cousins took my daughter away from me because I was so distraught. We were all really upset and very angry that they had done this to us. We don't know how this works, and we just got played by the system.
My name is Jessica Service, and I am Todd and Barb's proud daughter. My dad is an amazing, kind, and caring person, and he has been nothing but kind and caring to anyone he meets for my entire life. I ask you for your consideration in my dad's eligibility for parole in 20 years. Please understand that my parents were a very big part of our lives, and we would like the opportunity to share more of our lives with my dad.
Barbara Kendhammer's cousin, Jerry Ann Buckner, was the only family member to speak against Todd Kendhammer and on behalf of the victim.
We are family too, with heavy hearts and compassion for all involved. That being said, we are compelled to stand up for Barbara so justice can be served and her soul can rest in peace. The horror of knowing she suffered terribly while being strangled and having her skull fractured by her assailant is gut-wrenching. There is not one of us here today that has not experienced anger or rage in our lifetime, but to blatantly and repeatedly lie to family, friends, co-workers, and law enforcement requires him to serve the full penalty for his crime. We ask the court this day to sentence him to life in prison.
Mr. Kendhammer, at this time, do you wish to address the court?
I do, Your Honor. I would like to say a thank you to my family and friends for the support that they've offered and continue to offer. And I appreciate that, and I thank for the time.
All right. Mr. Kendhammer, is there any reason I should not then now complete sentencing?
No.
There seems to be a hidden side to you. To me, you snapped on that date, you lost it, committed this horrific act. Barbara's dead, and there's the cover-up thereafter. That goes to your degree of culpability. You are the one responsible for her death, not some pipe falling off a truck. There's a lot of pain and suffering in this courtroom, and you're the focal point of it all. Whether you can ever restore people's faith in you, I don't know. But you are somewhat of an enigma. But this is not church. I don't believe in mercy in the courtroom. I don't believe in being lenient or harsh, because those are things that are not appropriate. What's appropriate is the right sentence for the right person. Your attorney's asking for a 20-year parole eligibility date. 20 years is way too short. The length of your marriage at 25 years is, in my mind, way too short. I will set your parole eligibility or review date at March 9th of 2048. 30 years from now, when you're 77.
I was like, do you realize what you've just done to our lives and his life? We just kind of looked at him and, said that we loved him, and when they walked him away, I didn't really know what to think, but we're gonna fix this, they're gonna realize they made a mistake.
The family quickly hired a well-known pair of Wisconsin lawyers, a husband-wife team, to appeal the conviction.
I've seen all kinds of homicide cases, and this one never added up to me.
And they thought the reenactment videos showing a bouncing pipe supported Kendhammer's version of events.
The trial attorneys never put in the pipe drop reenactments to show that's exactly what could have happened.
But the trial judge rejected the first round of appeals, and Todd Kendhammer remains in state prison.
There's not a question in my mind that Todd did this. The theory of an accidental a pipe flying through a windshield is so far-fetched. I'm 100% confident that we got the right person in jail and justice is being served.